Welcome to the Nerd Party.
I like what I call this kind of snowballing effect of storylines, and cross-cutting parallel action is a wonderful tool for a filmmaker.
Hello everybody at home and welcome to House of Nolan. I am one of your co-hosts, Tristan Riddell, and with me as always is Brandon Shea Mutala. How are you doing tonight?
I don't know how I got here. I don't know what's going on. I'm covered in tattoos that I don't remember getting, and the last thing I remember is my wife.
Oh, that's nice.
She died.
Oh, you screwed up the line. It's one word and you screwed up the line. Let me desaturate everything so that I can explain it to you later.
I don't remember. I've only seen this movie twice.
And one of my other co-hosts who's laughing in the background is John Mills. John, how are you?
Well, you know what? I got a guy. I found the guy. We can go find him. Come on, Brandon. We'll go track him down together. And it's in an abandoned warehouse. Here's this pickup truck. Come on with me.
I love your mustache, John.
Oh, you know what? It makes me look like a killer.
Most mustaches do.
I got a question
Yes.
before we get going too far. Is this a sequel to The Matrix?
Isn't everything?
It's definitely a reunion party. I can tell you that.
Tonight, we're actually talking about Memento. I am so excited to talk about this one because if you were a wannabe film nerd or a film school student in the late 90s, early 2000s, you most likely cherished this movie and treasured it as if it was one of your own children and wore out the DVD. And we talked about a little bit about Memento last week when we were talking about our introductions and talking about the falling and everything like that and how we know Chris Nolan. And Memento was often came up like, oh, this was our first real interaction. Like none of us really knew him from following. It was really Memento that was our dip in the pool that was Nolan's filmography. I have watched this several times over the past 20 years because it came out in 2000. This is a movie that always feels older to me. This feels like this should be like a 1996 movie, a 1995 movie. Am I alone in that? John, do you feel that way?
No, but and that makes sense because 2000 is right on that bridge. So it was made in the late 90s. The fashions and the sensibilities very much evoke that time period. I'm a little bit older than you, so I'm like, oh yeah, that's if you were like, what movie says 90s? I'm like, well, you really should watch Memento. Not necessarily that we were all going around forgetting that we murdered people, but the fact that the way they dress and what was sort of like in style and stuff like that. So yeah, it definitely feels of its time in that sense. Especially the fact that he basically when he goes to meet at the beginning of the movie, he's basically in like a grunge outfit. He's got like the plaid shirt untucked with jeans and stuff like that. And it's like he looks like he's going to a concert in Seattle. So
now I'm glad that you brought up like in beginning of the movie, that kind of thing. I think what we need to do, since it could get really complicated, I think we need to say beginning of the movie, end of the story. I think that's how we need to kind of differentiate the timelines. Does that sound cool to you guys?
Sure.
yeah, it works for
I'll
me.
do my best.
All right. Brandon. Now, one thing that I love about this show, about the House of series, is when we ask each other, when was our first interactions with the movie? Brandon, now you said that you haven't seen this movie in 20 years except for last night. When was the first time you saw it? Was it in the theater when it first came out? Was it on DVD? What's going on?
It was on DVD in 2000. It was either 2000 or early 2001. Like, so right when it came out, somebody at the video store recommended it and I rented it. I took it home and watched it. And I was completely blown away with the movie. You were just saying it felt like early 90s. Like, yeah, this really feels like a mid to late 90s type of movie. It feels like that kind of movie that I was watching at that time period in my life. Somebody just blind recommended it to me and I grabbed it and it really, really blew my socks off because I didn't know what to expect going into it. I hadn't heard of it. Hadn't seen a trailer, didn't know anything about it, and a lot of the actors, like I don't think I knew who Guy Pearce was at this time. I didn't recognize him at the time. I still don't know a lot of Guy Pearce movies. I mean, I know that he's in Prometheus, right? But I mean, I couldn't give you like an extensive filmography of him, right? So, but Anyways, yeah, so that was my first experience. But again, as I was mentioning last week, I do remember that one bonus feature that I never got around to watching, which was on the DVD I had rented. You could watch Memento in chronological order. And I thought that was very interesting, but I never did get around to watching it. And I have the Steelbook Blu-ray, and that feature's not on there. I think that's kind of odd.
Oh, that's interesting. I always find it odd when they release new editions and they take features away.
Yeah.
Instead of just adding more features, it doesn't. I'll call out Lucas for this. Like when certain features are taken off for like new releases and everything, I'm kind of like, why? Mm-hmm. Like I like that old documentary. I want it in a better format. Yeah. So but yeah, that's just to say I understand that frustration of buying the new edition, and then you look at it, and you're like, oh, all right. Mm-hmm. I don't know why you made that decision. Mm-hmm. Sure.
It was the wrong decision. You made it, but it was your choice to make it. Now, John, when was the first time you saw this movie?
Well, I don't remember the specific first time. I am absolutely positive that I know the people that recommended it to me, and they were film students. And they had steered me toward it. And I remember seeing it. Like I have a vague memory of seeing it and that impression of I know that I really, really liked it. When it was re-released in the theaters for, I think it was the 10th anniversary, I did wind up going out to see it. And they actually had a terrific interview of Nolan by Guillermo del Toro that was appended to the end of it. And so when I saw it in the movie theater, I remember specifically, I don't remember the specific location of the movie theater, but it would have been somewhere probably in Columbia, Maryland. But I remember seeing it with my friend at the time, Dustin, who had been a film student and probably was one of the people that recommended it to me. It was like his favorite movie of all time. And so it was actually it's actually a really great memory to experience seeing this movie in the theater, even though it wasn't my first time seeing it, but seeing it with somebody where it was literally their favorite film. And it's always so fun experiencing a movie with somebody where that is the case. And so that's a really, really good memory of the film that I have.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
I like that. Yeah.
Now, what about you, Tristan?
I was hoping someone would ask. Thank you, John.
Well, of course.
So with this one, I think it had to have been the Blockbuster days. You know, like when you now listen, kids. Blockbuster was a physical place where you could go and rent a movie. And I know what some of you are thinking. How could there be a physical place where you go and rent a movie? It was. That was one of my favorite things in the world ever since I was a little kid up until high school. Mm-hmm. Was going to a physical movie rental place and just perusing the shelves. Actually, just last week there was 3 Family Videos in my area, and they just now closed. Due to the pandemic. And that was one place I was able to still kind of walk around because they had 4K movies. And so that's why I would go there, just because they were the only place in town I could rent a 4K movie. But anyway, so I think it was like I had a friend of mine who I would watch everything with. Like we would try to get the non-Hollywood blockbusters. Like we would try to get the ones that no one have ever heard of or no one told us about, or the ones that had an indie feel to them, even though Memento was a little bit higher profile than an indie film like in the 90s, something like, like Ethan Hawke would narrate. You had I'm pretty sure that's how it happened. Like we picked it up off the shelf and was just like, oh, let's check this out. Guy Pearce is pretty cool. Like Carrie-Anne Moss is from The Matrix. That just blew up. Let's figure this out. And I was blown away. I was absolutely like Brandon. I was blown away. This was so good. The non-linear narrative structure. I think this was my first real this was what solidified my love for non-linear storytelling.
Like prior to this, all that we would have known was Pulp Fiction, right? Like that would have been our first exposure, and that's nowhere near what this is.
Right. Yeah. Like those are so many vignettes that are just told out of order. This is one complete story that's told in reverse. Mm-hmm. It's so great. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think that's a great comparison. And I think that's why I always feel like Memento is earlier. Like I think it feels like something that came out around the same time as Pulp Fiction, but it didn't at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, I know that there were, other films that experimented with non-linear stuff, but they were never quite as cohesive as this is. I think what the real accomplishment is with Memento is the fact that it is as nonlinear as it is, it's still cohesive. It's still a thread that you can follow from beginning to finish. And so, I if you don't mind, like the question I would have is, I had friends who saw Memento when we were all doing the obligatory "you got to see this movie" phase, and they would come out of it and say, "I don't get it. What happened?" And they were very much thrown off. Did you guys run across any of that? Did you have any sort of like confusion? Because like, and I'm not saying this as like, some sort of like comparison or superiority sort of thing. I'm saying it as like, I never really had a problem following it. Did you guys encounter that yourselves, or did you encounter anybody that had a problem following the film?
Well, I don't really associate with those types of people.
Oh, yes.
So, no, I think I don't remember specifically anything related to Memento about people not understanding it, but I know several people, actually my parents, who are very literate moviegoers. Like they watch they watch indie films, blockbusters, foreign films. They watch everything. They watch more stuff than I do, but they don't like non-linear storytelling. They hate having to wrap their heads around non-linear structure, and it's something that they've always disconnected with. And I think that they just recently watched the first season of The Witcher, which is it's like non-linear on steroids because nobody ages. And it's I think to answer the question, no one specifically with Memento, but a lot of people in my life do kind of struggle with that nonlinear storytelling. Brandon, do you have anybody like that?
Well, I've never really talked to many people about this movie. I never had trouble myself. I mean, like going into the movie now, I didn't remember all of the twists and turns, but I didn't have any trouble following it this time. So it was interesting. It was interesting to rewatch it. I didn't have trouble the first time going through the movie and trying to figure out the plot point. I like watching cinema though that makes me challenged. It challenges me as a viewer. It's either, something that that I do have to think about, or something that I have to reflect upon afterwards, or something that makes me feel a way that I've never felt before, like a really difficult to watch kind of movie. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Man Bites Dog. No,
I haven't seen that.
Okay, so like that's a very interesting movie. It's kind of makes me think of this. It's this type of period. It's a foreign film. It's in the Criterion Collection, and it plays a lot with the cinema medium in that like they'll have like comedy. You'll be laughing for 1 second, and the next cut you're going to be horrified, and that cut happens while you're laughing. And so then you're laughing over this horrific image, and then it's like, oh my goodness, and then you feel all weird and uncomfortable because you're laughing while this horrific image is going on, right? But it's playing with your senses and playing with it, things like that. So I like those kinds of movies. I like being challenged by cinema.
What you're describing sounds almost like theater of cruelty. And so it's like, that's very fascinating to me, because I think what that winds up speaking to is the fact that Nolan does tread that line of he demands something of the audience, and he doesn't dumb it down and slow it down for them. So it's interesting because it's like what you're describing is beyond where Nolan goes, but at the same time, he sort of like toys with that notion.
Yeah, and what's interesting about this movie is that he does help the viewers significantly by having black and white and color. And I think that modern Nolan would not do that. I think he would have done the whole thing in color.
I think you're right. Brandon, I think you're right. I was about to say how I feel like Nolan goes out of his way to try to make it understandable, because you give the audience a break. You give them a breather with the black and white, the negative space that is the hotel room. It allows you to kind of catch up and get a little bit more backstory. And he repeats just a few moments after every single scene. And I think that really helps to bridge the audience to remember what you watched beforehand. So I'm not saying it spoon feeds it for you, but it definitely makes it easier than he could have. I feel like he makes it easier than he did with following for Memento.
See, what's interesting is I don't discount any of that. That absolutely has merit, especially the replaying, a couple of seconds here and there so that you remember, oh, right, I saw this.
Like
this plays into what I saw. Right. I thought I told you to get out of town. But at the same time, I almost wonder, because we mentioned on the previous episode how you can see Nolan progress through his career. You see him take something and then he applies it in the next movie, and then he applies it as he gets more and more comfortable with a specific tool. And so there's almost a part of me that while I was doing this rewatch was entertaining, was part of this in black and white because that's what he did Following with. And so this is him dipping his toe into color and becoming more comfortable with it before he goes full color. Like this is a bridge between black and white Nolan and full color Nolan. I'm probably inventing that in my brain, but it seems almost like a fun sort of thing because the black and white stuff seems to have more of the sensibility of Following, whereas the stuff that's in color seems more like, this is going to sound weird. It's going to be phrased clunkily, but it seems almost more advanced than the stuff. Like the black and white stuff is definitely simpler, and the stuff that's in color is a little bit more intricate. So it almost feels like he's not committing fully to how complex he could make it. And the black and white segments are almost symbolic of his comfort zone that he's getting ready to leave, but he's not quite ready to go from yet.
I like that interpretation, but I think mainly it's that black and white 16 millimeter film is dirt cheap, and that's probably why he chose it.
Is that what he
Following.
did it in? Because I was going to say, I think it looks a lot. It does look like Following. It does have the Following feel for sure.
Oh, I'm just talking about Following. I'm not talking about Memento. With Memento, it was based off of a short story by Jonathan Nolan. So, which is his brother and continues to be his writing and story partner for years to come. And Jonathan Nolan is a fantastic writer and a fantastic creative. He's done some fantastic shows like Westworld and that cop show with Jesus that everybody loves.
That one was
Point of Interest. Person of Interest.
Person of Interest was really good. That was a good show.
So what happened is that they were on, like, Jonathan Nolan was studying at Georgetown, and Christopher Nolan was moving to Los Angeles, and so they did a cross country trip together before Jonathan had to go back to school, and the entire trip they wrote this movie. They spoke it out loud. And they workshopped it together, and by the time that they got to Los Angeles, the film had been completely written verbally, if that makes sense. And then Chris went and wrote it down, and that was the script. And even though it's based off of a short story by Jonathan Nolan, it's still considered an original work because the short story came out after Memento was released.
Wait, then how can the credit be in there if it's based on the short story? But is that just a cheat because it was going to be published, and so he wanted to make sure his brother got some extra money from it? Like, is that just, skirting the WGA rules or something?
I don't know if it's skirting any WGA rules. I think it's kind of like when The Godfather, they sold the rights to the film rights to The Godfather before it was ever published. It could be one of those deals.
Okay. That would make sense. That would make sense. And he would have given his brother the rights to the story so that he could have, nepotism works. It makes great movies sometimes.
Hey, man, yeah. If Chris Nolan was my brother, I'd be riding that train.
Oh, jeez, are you kidding?
Now, speaking of another collaborator, before we move on, I do want to talk about probably one of my favorite pairings besides Jonathan Nolan and his wife Emma Thomas. I'd have to say Wally Pfister. Since we were talking about cinematography just a little bit ago, Wally Pfister, I think, is just I'm going to shock your guys' world here. I'm going to give you a hot take. I think he's a fantastic cinematographer.
Well, okay. Now present your case, please, because this is a take I've never heard before.
So, I want to talk about his photography here. I want to talk about what you think of what Pfister chose to do in Memento, like whether it's in the negative space of the black and white, whether it's like how it was used in reverse at the beginning, or all throughout. Like, how do you feel his cinematography helped tell the story as opposed to just capturing the shot?
Taking a look at the way that things are framed, I can see very much sort of that, again, getting back to when we're talking about the black and white part of it is a little bit more simplistic and the color part is a little more complex. I think that in terms of the photography, that the black and white stuff is very straightforward, whereas with the stuff that's shot in color, Pfister is a lot more comfortable getting sort of in the midst of things. I think specifically of the shot of the car screeching to a halt in front of the tattoo parlor, and also the way that he stages that final confrontation, with Teddy, and the way he shoots it. There is a very measured sort of framing to the way he puts stuff, where it draws the eye, but if you take the time to look around the frame, you see a lot of the ways that he uses what's surrounding what you're looking at to keep drawing your eye back to it. Like it's like a really well composed painting, or in the naturally photograph, where everything takes you back to the subject at hand and what's happening. And he's also extremely adept, I think, on the broken glass is there the whole time, but you don't pay attention to it until he tries to roll the window up, and then you see the broken glass because the window doesn't work. And I think Pfister is extremely adept at doing those sorts of things, where when somebody he hides stuff in plain sight throughout this whole movie that speak to those sorts of things.
Now it's funny that you bring up that specific thing. Because I agree with you 100%, but whenever I think of something, whenever somebody says the phrase hiding in plain sight in realms of cinema, my mind always goes to The Shining with the tub scene where the naked woman is in the tub before she becomes the old woman. And that first shot when Jack walks in, nobody's there, but she is there. You don't see her until she moves, until the filmmaker wants you to see her. And Nolan is a huge Kubrick fan. I think his favorite movie of all time is 2001. I think I might be wrong on that, but I know that Kubrick is his favorite director. I definitely think that would be a conversation. That would be a touch point for them, that the Nolan Pfister relationship would draw heavily off of those kind of moments of revealing something in the frame, making the audience pay attention to it when you want them to pay attention to it.
But where do you draw that line between the cinematographer and the director? Like somebody like Nolan, I put on the category of somebody like Fincher because they have so much control over what they want the viewer to see.
I'll jump in. Tristan, you're probably way more qualified to answer this question than me, but so I'll order it from my sort of plebeian stance, which is, yes, you're right. Nolan is, I think, known for the fact that he's always behind the camera. I don't think he even cedes control to second unit too much or anything like that. And I think that probably what it is at this point, if I'm bold enough, is I think that the music also provides a hint here. Nolan knows what he wants, but I think that at this point he's in that stage of surrounding himself with people he knows are going to give it to him. And so Pfister is key at this point. And I think when you go later down his career, when Pfister leaves, the reason things remain in continuity is Nolan completely knows exactly what it is to get. I could be completely off base in this, but that's sort of how I read the situation.
No, I don't, you're not off base at all. I think you're, how do I put this? I think with the Nolan Pfister relationship, I think they grew together. They grew up together. Before Memento, Pfister was only doing TV movies. Memento was his first feature film to be a DP on. He was a camera assistant. He was a camera assistant to the DP that Nolan actually wanted. I'm blanking on his name right now, but he sent the script to the DP he wanted, and he's like, I don't understand it. I'm not going to do it. And then either he recommended Pfister or he reached out to Pfister. I can't remember. And Pfister's just like, oh yeah, I'll totally do it. And then he told his mentor, he's like, yeah, I didn't understand the script either, but I knew that this was going to be a good opportunity.
Yeah, smart.
And so I feel like what happened is that from what I've heard from people who have worked with Nolan and people who have worked with Pfister is that is exactly what you said, John, is that Nolan knows what he wants. He may not know how to capture what he wants. He may not know how to physically do it, but that's why you surround yourself with people who know what they're doing. And that's definitely what Nolan does. Fincher knows how to do it. Fincher knows how to use the camera. He knows how to use light. He knows how to edit. He knows how to produce. He knows everything about the filmmaking process and how to do it in a masterful way. This is not a knock on Nolan. I'm not boosting up Fincher. It's just two ways of doing things. Mm-hmm. And some people hate Fincher for that. Like, I know people who've worked with Fincher who will never work with Fincher again because he's a jerk on set, because if you're not perfect, then he doesn't want you there. And with Nolan, he surrounds himself with people who are very good at what they do so that they can collaborate to give him his vision. And Nolan and Pfister grew up together on set, honing their skill. And as you see the work progress, when you go from Memento to Insomnia to Begins to Prestige, Dark Knight, Inception, and then I think Pfister's magnum opus, Dark Knight Rises, Pfister hones the Nolan look. And when Pfister becomes when he leaves Nolan and becomes his director, when you look at Transcendence, you're like, holy crap, this looks like a Nolan film. Well, there's a reason why.
Right.
And then when you look at Interstellar, which is not shot by Pfister, it still looks like a Nolan film because Nolan now knows what he wants. And Pfister helped Nolan figure out how to articulate what he wants. And so he can tell another DP to do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does.
So yeah, Brandon, that's who Pfister is. Mm-hmm. He was Nolan's DP for 6 films.
Okay.
Until he left to become his own director.
So for me, so I'm still learning a lot of technical terms and I don't know all these things. So director of photography, is that a person who's, they're not setting up like the lighting and stuff like this. They're not getting like the color temperature of the set. They're setting up the camera and the camera movements. Is that correct?
It's different on many sets. It depends on the budget. It depends on the style. There's a lot of DPs who are basically co-directors with the director. Like there is a very symbiotic relationship where they are the author of what is shown on screen just as much as the director is, and just as much as the editor is the author of the movie to the audience. Mm-hmm. And it really, really depends, because there are DPs who are incredibly involved, who are there in pre-production, who go through the script with the director, they storyboard, or they talk about what they want, what they feel. They try to give the director's vision while also giving their own. And there's also DPs who are just really, really good at their jobs, who are like, okay, all right, I think we should do like a pan here. You know, like maybe this could be handheld. What do you think? You know, like it's just people who can capture a beautiful image, but the director tells them what kind of image they want. So it really all depends on the relationship.
Okay, because the thing that I think I noticed the most out of it then would be that the black and white stuff in the past tend to have a lot of like high angles looking down. And it felt like in the color sequences, it was the opposite. It was kind of like lower looking up kind of thing. And, you know, generally in cinema, when you have that, you know, it's a position of power, right? If you're looking down on somebody, they're not in power. And in the black and white sequences, we're learning more about who this guy is and his condition, more so than we are in the color sequences, right? And if you go chronologically by how the story is told, that transition from black and white to color is when he really gains power over the situation, right? And so the color sequences are then the camera has changed, right? So that would be the biggest thing that I would notice. Is that a Nolan thing? Is that a Pfister thing?
I think that might be a Memento thing.
Mm-hmm. So like the both?
I think that's a valid interpretation. Like I think, you mean like specifically like whose decision, like you're asking from an abstract way, whose decision would that have been? It could have been either. I mean, I don't think we know. It could have been Nolan's decision. It could have been Pfister's. It could be a collaboration. We don't know.
Yeah, I would say most likely at this point it's a collaboration. that it's the two of them, because, you know, to speak to your points, Tristan, you know, like Pfister is using this to break in. Nolan, this is his shot after following. And so there's probably a fair amount of collaboration going on. Whereas, you know, also to speak further to Tristan's points, like on a different movie, it's going to be a different sort of thing. Like the supposedly with Spielberg's movies, like, you know, the big budget stuff now, the big budget stuff, he just sort of like goes on. He's like, okay, tell me that, and then he's much more involved on something like The Paper. And so that's much more like Spielberg hands-on sort of stuff. Whereas with like Ready Player One, he's like, okay, you know what type of shot I want? Just go out and, you know, get that for me if you would, sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. But I really like that interpretation, Brandon. I really like that noticing of the looking down on the vulnerable Lenny, like the Leonard who is bearing his soul, telling about his past unabashedly, and talking about Sammy Jenkins and everything like that. And then we switch to where he gains a little bit more power. He gets that suit, he gets the jag, he gets the gun, and he's taking control over his life and over Teddy. Yeah, I think that's great.
And then I guess the only other thing that I would say that I noticed drastically is, and I still love it, is that sequence near the end when in the shot we switch from black and white to color, so that we know where we've caught up in the point of the story. You know, I think that's to me, the visual representation of the black and white and the color, it might be, like you said earlier, it's not really spoon feeding, but it does help us along. But I think it is very powerful for this movie that they chose to do that. I think it works really well for this story. I think that the I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here in our conversation, but I mean, like the out of sequence, out of chronological storytelling works way better in this movie than it did in following, and is, I believe, essential to this movie. I don't think if this movie is told in chronological order, it holds a candle to it being told out of chronological order. I think it's very important to understand the character in a situation to have this story told out of chronological order. It's very important to this story that they're telling. It's not a gimmick at all in this one. I think it's kind of a gimmick in following, but it's definitely not a gimmick here.
I completely agree, because I think that the telling the things out of order in this case makes you more sympathetic to Lenny, because you're disoriented when the story first starts. And then you start getting your feet under you. And again, like we said, by the end, okay, he started to gain agency and stuff like that. But I think that telling it out of sequence gives you the sense of what it's like to live like him. And it makes you more predisposed to believe him when he's telling you that he can't remember things. Because you're going along saying, wait, what happened? And it gets easier as it goes on. But as the story progresses is one thing. Whereas in the beginning, you're like, wait, what happened now? Where am I right now? And so you wind up more sympathetic to the main character. And that's why, and the thing is, I guess this is jumping ahead, but I think that's why it's so brilliant that at the end of the story, Teddy basically accuses him of, you conditioned yourself to be this way. You're lying to yourself. This isn't really a thing. This is psychological, but you inflicted it on yourself. And so I think it's a really great exchange, because it leaves you then in the position of trying to walk back through the movie and say, wait, did I miss something here? Is there some sort of tell that he knows on some level that he's lying to himself? It's interesting too, because there's a missing tattoo that you see when things start coming together for him at the end. Where suddenly there's a tattoo in the missing tattoo spot, and it's a really interesting sort of way to screw with you, because you've spent this whole movie being sympathetic to him and saying, I understand him, I get it, and then at the end you think, wait, no, he made himself this way on purpose. Like it's a really, I just think it's, and I think Brandon, you said this in the last one, where Nolan's whole trick is you're just waiting for that thing to come together at the end. And, so this is very much in line with everything he's going to do from this point forward of, okay, I'm going to give you the puzzle pieces. And then at the end, I'm going to tell you how to put together, and credits.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
I would love to have been in the edit bay with this film to figure out how much of it was Nolan going, yes, I know what I want. Like, this is how the movie's going to be structured. This is exactly where we cut. This is exactly where we go to the next one. And how much of it was discovered by his editor, in the edit bay. Like, I want to know where those points were. Like, was the script written that way, or was it found in the edit? Now, obviously, you had to have known what you were doing before you shoot it. I'm not saying like they found it in the edit, but I want to know how much give and take there was, how much discovery. And I want to give a little love to the editor of this film, because I feel like she gets overlooked a lot of the times in the conversation, and that's Dottie Dorn. She cut Memento. She also cut Insomnia, which we're going to be talking about next week. And then she moves over and becomes Ridley Scott's editor with Matchstick Men, Kingdom of Heaven, and A Good Year. She also did Year of the Dog, Australia, I'm Still Here. But then she does Fury and the new Ben-Hur film and like Power Rangers. And I'm just like, okay, where is she going with this? And lately, I think she's going to become Snyder's new editor, because she just cut the Justice League Snyder cut.
Oh, wow.
And she's going to be cutting his Army of Dead movie.
See, I think that I like the fact that you're drawing attention to her, because there are so many people where all of us, even those of us who love film, we have a habit of leapfrogging past the editors sometimes. And it's the editors that sit there and will sit in the bay and say, do you really want this scene? Are you sure this is really what you want? And challenge the director. People talk about Scorsese, but they don't talk about, Schoonmaker enough and those sorts of things. And you're absolutely right. Because what I would love to do is I would love to interview her, because in my mind, as like a project manager, I'm sitting here saying the way they have to have put this together is they have to have edited the black and white stuff in one side, chronologically, and then they edited the color stuff chronologically, and then they said, okay, and then the script says we do this, and then they like blended them together, because that is the only way I could approach a project like this.
Yeah,
is to edit two movies and then find a way to blend them together.
And and I think that's also why they had the chronological cut on this, is because, again, they want you to know that they didn't cheat, right? So like for that original DVD release, they want you to know that there's no cheating in the movie. And I think that that's very important for Nolan as a filmmaker. Is I think that he had this all written out. I believe that these sequences were written this way. It's this long. We learn this information at this point. Then we go back and then we learn this information at this point. But this is Nolan, and this is his control. So yes, we got a good editor, but when I believe that he's told them in the script, I want this chunk here. Right? In the bonus feature on the Blu-ray, she talked about how the overlapping scene they ensured was the exact same footage. There was no alternate angle, no alternate take, nothing like that, to help the viewer along to understand where they were in the story. Because if it was any difference, they would have been confused. Right? So she did talk a little bit about it on a bonus feature there.
I'm really glad you mentioned that, because one of the things about Pulp Fiction that has been under my skin since my first viewing is the fact that they use an alternate take when Pumpkin and Honey Bunny hold up the restaurant when we get to that last part. And I just think to myself the whole time, why? You could have, it just jumps out at you, especially after your second, like your first viewing, you can sort of like be like, okay, whatever. But like, as you get to your 10th viewing, you're like, why didn't you just use the same damn thing you did at the beginning? So, it's that attention to detail that I think really deserves a lot of credit.
I have an answer to the Pulp Fiction thing.
Please, by all means.
It was a different angle, and he only had one camera. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, go back and reshoot it and get the right words. Okay, that's why.
It would have been cool, like if they used the audio, like somehow cut it together where they used the original audio, but it was a different angle, like something like that. I get you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I know. Yeah.
Well, yes. So like I've been an editor for 17 years now. And I started off in, like in school, and like I started off in small commercials, and then I went to school for editing and filmmaking in general and everything like that. And there was one short film that I wrote that was nonlinear, and it got funding, and then they wanted me to edit it. Like, that was one of the things where, like, it was one of those things where they could save a cost. And I was like, yeah, sure, I write it. And I got into a shouting match with the producers because they're like, well, we don't want to do it in nonlinear form because we feel like it'd be more confusing. I was like, well, that's the entire freaking point of this project, was that it's told in a nonlinear way. And they were just like, well, I mean, we'll shoot it normally, and like I guess you could try something and edit, but we want you to write the script in a linear way. And I was like, so you want me to make your shooting script for you, and you're going to try to tell me that maybe I'll get to be able to edit it the way that I originally wrote it? It was so maddening, and it was just on the most indiest of indie levels. I can't even imagine something with a real budget, or something like Memento, or even what Nolan's doing now, where you have that producer who just doesn't get it.
So this was your Alien 3.
But see, this is the thing, right? Is Nolan is early enough in his career that he can take this risk, and if it pays off, then he gets the cachet from this, and he can start to leverage his successes. And I think that becomes very much a big story throughout his career, where it's these victories that he has along the way. And I think that Memento winds up being a key victory. He comes right out of the gate. He's been on the film festival circuit, and this is pre-internet. This is building your following sort of thing. And he comes out and he gets this, and this is a critical darling, and it's a pretty good success, if I recall correctly. And it gets a lot of home video love, and it gains a reputation. And I think that sort of thing is key. I don't think that Nolan pulls this off if he's the studio guy who does, I don't know, something more linear like Insomnia first, right? Like, this movie gets more fights in the editing bay, if you will. Whereas he's at the point in his career where this is a film where they're saying, okay, you know what? It's not huge, and we'll see. It's almost like a Paul Thomas Anderson sort of thing. You know what? Maybe we'll win a couple of awards with this one. That's good prestige, right? So it's fine. Whereas now he's been able to leverage it to the point where it's like, I'm going to screw with everything and every construct, and you're going to give me $200 million to make it. And the studio says, well, you're Christopher Nolan. Of course we will,
Yeah, it cost $9 million to make, and it had a $40 million return, which is huge.
Pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty good stuff. But the thing is, that also lets you know how much the stuff has changed in the last 20 years, because that's a great return. Look at how much money it made. But nowadays, a box office of 40 million, regardless of what the budget was, people say, yeah, but Endgame made 3 billion.
I was going to say, wasn't 40 million Downey Jr.'s paycheck?
It's what his trailer cost,
That's why it's so funny when we have these kind of conversations about money nowadays, like especially when we're looking at modern TV and how the Lord of the Rings series is going to cost $1 billion.
That's insane. And it's insane, especially because you can't have like a direct box office off of it, right? With a box office, I spent $9 million, I made $40 million. That's good money. I made a return on investment.
Yeah, it's a direct ROI.
Yeah, a $1 billion TV show. It's like, how many more subscriptions did we get? 10. Is that good? Did we recoup?
That's one of those arguments, is that like, this is a $9 million movie and it's fantastic. It's one for the ages. It was groundbreaking in what it did. And we're like, if this movie came out today, we'd be lucky if it had 3 days of promotion.
Yep.
And it would get lost in the shuffle on Netflix. It'd be like, oh, okay, well, you got to check this out. And, 15,000 people would have seen it.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And there's not even the space for it to become word of mouth at this point, because something like Memento gets released today. And I'm not saying something exactly like, I'm saying like something that's as formative as this isn't going to have Stranger Things sort of numbers. Mm-hmm. This isn't going to have the word of mouth of people going on Facebook and Twitter and saying, hashtag Memento, gotta see this flick. Like it's really, it's a damn shame is what it is, because I honestly can say that I saw tons and tons of movies growing up and in the 90s, and I'm a big Fincher fan, and I always knew Fincher was great at what he did and everything. But Memento is representative of a time where I actually started understanding the technical aspects of things. And so as a result, I look at something like Memento with a tremendous fondness, because it's representative of an era that was like the late 70s, where every so often somebody was kicking a door down with The Matrix or Memento, and it's like, wow, okay, things are changing. And I don't know if we can replicate that at this point.
I don't think we definitely can't replicate it, but I think we're gonna get a new renaissance someday. I mean, it's gonna be different. Yeah. Something is gonna give, where there's gonna be a repeat of the 70s, of the 90s, but in its own form. And I think we're due for one. I think somehow I feel like the streaming model it's giving more access to minority voices, to more female voices, and to non-American voices. And I think that is definitely going to help it. I think we're definitely going in that direction. And I'm just guessing. I think that might be one of those revolutions. Now, we're reaching we're about 10 minutes away from the hour mark. And I think we need to talk about some of the performances in this movie. Mm-hmm. Because Guy Pearce is one of those actors that is just, he's phenomenal. He's a chameleon. He's like, he's like Gary Oldman. He's like Johnny Depp in that way, where he can become any part and any character in any way, but you don't see him that much. Like he does a lot of straight to DVD releases, and it boggles the mind, because he's kind of like Edward Norton to me, where Edward Norton is one of my favorite actors of all time, and you very rarely see him. And sometimes he'll be in a movie you like, oh wow, yeah, I think I saw that on the shelf, or I saw that in the bin, or I saw that, on free streaming on Amazon Prime or something like that. It's strange, but that's neither here nor there. What did you guys think of his performance as Leonard? Brandon?
I thought he was fine. I mean, he didn't blow my socks off. He's an actor that I don't know. It's like I said, I mean, I just said the only other thing I could think of him being in is Prometheus, right? So, I mean, I don't know. I think he's an okay actor. And did he do a good job in this movie? Yeah. But he didn't blow my socks off.
I wind up on the other end of the scale. I think that I'm also possibly biased, because his big breakthrough was LA Confidential. Mm-hmm. And he was supposed to be the next big thing coming out of LA Confidential. Everybody loved him and Russell Crowe, and everybody was like, but Guy Pearce, he's got the movie star looks and quality. He's going to be the big thing. Russell Crowe's career winds up going on a different trajectory. And like Guy Pearce, it's always puzzling to me why he is not more visible. I think that Guy Pearce's performance is great in this movie. Do I think that he's irreplaceable in the sense that I will admit that I watched this, and as I watched it, I thought to myself, this is Christian Bale if Nolan has his way now. And Christian Bale is going to give me a performance similar to this. But the thing is, it's easy for me to go in and mentally be sort of dismissive of Guy Pearce in that regard, to be like, oh, well, Christian Bale could come in and do this too. But at the same time, that puts him in a category that is of a remarkably professional and gifted actor. And so I think his performance is very good. I think he does a really good job of selling it. I believe him.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you on that one. I do believe that you believe him, and I feel like a lesser performance, you wouldn't sympathize as much. You would be like, is this guy faking? Is he like the con man who faked it? and then you wouldn't have that surprise at the end where you realize he's doing this to himself, that he continues on or he gets rid of Teddy. And what's funny is Nolan's first choice for Leonard was Alec Baldwin.
Oh, no.
Oh, dear Lord.
Oh, no. Oh, thank God it was Guy Pearce. Oh, no.
Man, I don't even know what that would look like.
All due respect to Baldwin, because he's a tremendous actor. I'm not saying anything, but like there are certain actors where you're like, oh, they're terrific. That's a great. Oh no, not this role. Not this role. No.
It was almost Brad Pitt.
I could see that. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I could see it too. But
Yeah.
I think Nolan went on record saying that he was like, it didn't work out because he was committed to other things. But he was glad that he didn't get an A-lister like Brad Pitt, because one thing was that he was able to more evenly distribute the finances to the movie and to everybody else. And I think that's really interesting. Like when you have to think about it, because not a lot of people really I don't want to say understand it, but take the time to think about it, about how like, oh yeah, we can totally get Brad Pitt, but that leaves us no money for people like Carrie Ann Moss or Joe Pantoliano, or, you know, like, or like people of that tier. And this is not a knock to them, that, you know, like they know who they are and they know where their bread is buttered. But you have to get people you can afford if you can get that A-lister. And a lot of people, a lot of indie filmmakers, a lot of lower level filmmakers, people who don't have a lot of funding, they put 90% of their budget for that A-lister because they know that name recognition goes a long way.
Which again speaks to the fact that this movie is so good that it gets the type of return that it does. And also spreading it around, you get a tremendous supporting cast, I think, that supports Pierce in his performance. Because I do think that Pantoliano, he's perfect for this role. This is exactly his type of role that he can play. He could play this blindfolded and get it absolutely perfectly right.
He almost didn't get the role because Nolan felt like his previous roles were too mustache twirling. Like it was
really.
Yeah, like it wasn't so much. He didn't think that Joe wasn't a good actor. He just felt like if people see him, they're gonna go, "Oh, that's the bad guy."
But see, this is the crazy thing: is I see him in this, and it's almost like a serious guy riff on what I mentioned earlier, Midnight Run. He's in Midnight Run, and it's not the same character, obviously, but it's a same type-ish of character, just in a more serious setting. So for me, this is exactly his lane. He deserves this role. I think any other actor, like you could pick other actors that could do this role just fine, but Pantoliano, I'm immediately comfortable and disarmed by him. That might just be because of my personal history up to that point, you know, with the types of roles I've seen him in. Mm-hmm. But I don't see him as the guy from The Matrix first. I see him as these other roles first, and I think that this is right in line with those. Yeah.
When I see Pantoliano, I don't think Matrix. I know a lot of people do, but I don't really. I think he was great, but he's done so many other great things that it's just like when I see like Carrie Ann Moss, I definitely.
Everybody has a misstep, Brandon. Everybody has a misstep.
Okay, but two people I definitely want to talk about who you know do not get the recognition that they deserve, specifically in this movie, but also just in their careers. And that's Harriet Sansom Harris and Stephen Tobolowsky.
Yep.
These people are phenomenal character actors, just on another level. They can do comedy, they can do drama. They can tug at your heartstrings, and they have such varied careers. Like with Harris, I mean, she did tons of comedy on Frasier. She was in the X-Files. She's in that Ratchet series, and she's just so funny, and she's so talented, and people don't really know her name, but they know her face.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's very true. Both of them, I think, also work so well because when things come clear later, you can see how they are just a projection of Guy Pearce and his wife. Like there's a perfect casting sort of thing there, and they play those roles so well. Like Tobolowsky, I think is just one of those guys where I see him in a movie, and he's, to speak to your point about and Harris as well. It's like a JT Walsh. I see their name in the credits, and I think, oh, they're going to be great. They're just fantastic, and and so they always enter that conversation from my point of view of those types of actors where they're not marquee names like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but they're going to have long careers that last forever. And I think that they're just they're fantastic. I think they're great in this, and I think that one of the best moments in the entire film is that handful of frames where the doctor walks in front of Tobolowsky, and you see Guy Pearce, and then it cuts, and it's such a masterfully done edit.
That's probably my favorite part of the entire movie. My absolute favorite part of the movie is that right there. It's just that swipe and boom. Like if you blink, you'll miss it, but it's very prevalent at the same time. I absolutely love it. And when Harris is on the couch, for some reason, this has stuck with me my entire life. And whenever somebody mentions a shot or mentions insulin or anything like that, I hear Harris in my head going, "It's time for my shot." It's just like the way that she says it.
Well, and also the way that she plays the pain when she asks for the shot the third time, and you can tell that she realizes she's gone past that point, that this is the end. And so she's just saying goodbye in the only way that she can. Like and when he goes over to her and is kissing her and trying to wake her up.
Yeah.
That's a really painful moment, man.
Every
Really
time
painful.
I see it, I'm just like, you could have like switched it out with some like water maybe, or some saline, just to really and not show him that you did that,
Yeah,
like,
so long as it's not air, you'll be fine.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And also apparently Tobolowsky, every word in this movie was unscripted, like complete improv. Yeah, every word was improv.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I know him from Deadwood. Like, that's the role that I know him the most from. He's in there. I think he's fantastic. And I know her from X-Files, right? So that's she's the woman from Eve. So
how can you not know Tobolowsky from Groundhog Day?
Have you seen Groundhog Day? Like once or twice. Yeah,
oh, come on. Come on, he's fantastic in Groundhog Day.
I do not understand. That movie is so overrated. I don't. Groundhog Day is just fine.
The Goonies fan is talking to me about Groundhog Day being overrated. Okay, sure. It's Crazy Town.
I think my favorite Tobolowsky performance is probably Sneakers.
Oh, yes. Yep. Okay. That's a great one.
I'm not trying to sound like a douche, but honestly, like that feels like that feels like a Tobolowsky movie to me. When you say Sneakers.
Fair. Very fair point. And actually came out in, when did that come out? 95, 96?
That feels about right. Let me look it up.
Yeah, it's right in that era. So right around the time that Memento is being developed.
92. Sneakers is 92.
That came out in 92? God, I'm old. I saw that in the movie theater.
I was 6 when that came out.
Well, I wasn't. And I saw it in the movie theater.
So, as a person who's coming to this movie, only seeing it twice now and having not seen it in 20 years, right? And only remembering a little bit coming into it. Can I talk a little bit about some of the things that I question about the movie?
Please.
Okay, so who was on the phone the whole time? Was it Teddy the whole time? Because there was 2 phone calls, wasn't there?
It was Teddy. If you look closely, he actually calls Teddy's number that was on his photo. And also he says, he's like, "Oh, you're in the lobby," and he goes down and he's in the lobby.
But doesn't he have, isn't there 2 conversations that he has on long that go from scene to scene? There's 2 different conversations, is there not?
But remember, he says at one point that if I have this conversation long enough, I won't remember why it started. So there's that aspect to it.
And then Teddy also said that there's this cop, he's messing with you. He'll slip things underneath your door to get you to get back onto the phone. And Teddy's the only cop that we know of.
Okay. Right. So then the other thing is, so one thing that I found kind of it was a little convenient for the movie is that his memory seemed to, it wasn't like it was a time-based thing. Like, okay, 6 hours I can remember, and after 6 hours everything starts to fade.
I know
like
exactly what you're going to say.
Yeah, like, so the one sequence when he's trying to look for a pen and he just suddenly forgets. Right?
Yeah.
Like, there was times when he would remember things for a while, and there's times when they would be gone immediately. The spitting in the drink, it was gone immediately, you know, things like that. There's a few where it's like it just seemed to go away a little too quickly, right?
But that, I think, lends itself to supporting the idea of what Teddy says later of this is conditioning. You conditioned yourself to be this way. And so there comes into it a certain aspect of, you know, making you question. But I would also say that he has a line at one point where he talks about how when you're stressed, this is not an exact verbatim thing, but he says when you're stressed, it creates the problem. Right? Like it sort of like overwrites stuff. And there's very much the scene when she's sitting out in the car, she's obviously waiting. She's obviously waiting for him to get so stressed and so overwhelmed that she can come in and throw him off his game, sort of thing. Now, to speak to Brandon's point, I do think it's possible that there are two different phone conversations going on, specifically because one of the envelopes that gets slipped under his door frames Teddy as the John G he needs to kill. And it would not make sense for Teddy to do that because he looks through one of the envelope one time, and it's got Teddy's, you know, name and license.
He got that photo at
driver's license
breakfast with Natalie.
Yeah.
where he-
Okay,
I think
right.
you.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you watch the movie?
So I'm
John?
mixing up the envelopes. No, I didn't. I forgot it already. That's what I forgot.
But no, like Brandon, I totally understand what you're saying because if you juxtapose the Natalie scene where we find out that she's actually a really horrible person, it seems like it's 45 seconds like that he forgets. And then when you go to the end of the movie, the beginning of the story, it feels like, oh, this is a good 20 minutes from like when he like left the hotel to when he got to his location to when he killed the guy to when he had the conversation with Teddy to when he got back into the car and then he drove in front of the tattoo parlor, wrote everything down, and then he forgets. You're like, ooh, okay, so this is very much a plot-driven amnesia.
Yeah. And then also now, like, so then here I am questioning this now at the end, looking back on it. So, he's got to be able to get caught at some point now, especially when he's got like the dead guy's license plate tattooed on his leg, right? You know, like, so like there's the evidence there that's going to be found. But then again, like even later on, so let's say he doesn't get caught the next time he wakes up and remembers, like, what's he going to do with the dead guy who's already dead with the tattoo on his leg, right? So I don't know, just a few little things are a question. But I mean, it doesn't take away from my enjoyment of the film. It's just sitting there on contemplation and reflection after watching the movie, you know?
Yeah, I think that it's one of those things where the people in the movie aren't concerned with how their machinations go after the movie is over, sort of thing. So yeah, I could see him getting caught for it and stuff like that, but it's not necessarily relevant to this portion of the story.
That's right,
if you will. In terms, I still go back to him talking about how stress can throw you off, and you have to sit there and be disciplined, sort of thing. So I could see it's not a thing where it's it's not like a stopwatch in his head where it's like every 9 minutes and 59 seconds a reset button gets hit. That it's fluid depending on the circumstances, as it were. In terms of Natalie being manipulative, and something that he says at another point in the movie, is a very interesting thing to me where he says when he's talking to Teddy at the counter when they're hanging out eating, where he says that memory can be a liar, basically. Memory can change the shape of a room. It can change the color of a car. And I think it's such an important discussion to have, and one that is uncomfortable, and one that is, I don't know if people like having these sorts of conversations where memory can be faulty, and it can be either faulty by design, by desire, changing it. You may think that that girl liked you more than she did, sort of thing, because you want to believe that. Or you may want to believe that your ex was meaner to you than they actually were because it makes it easier to say goodbye, sort of thing. And I think that that is the interesting discussion with this movie of memory is a tool, but it's a tool that can be misused, and it's a tool that can not function properly at times.
One thing that I'm really glad that you brought that up, because that always stuck with me when he says that in the diner, where he said, like, talk to any cop. It's not reliable, facts are reliable. And so you question and even after the Sammy Jenkins reveal, when you realize he's Sammy Jenkins, that there is no Sammy Jenkins, it makes you question yourself as an audience member. What did we just see? Did we see real life? Did we see his memory of that? Is he still going through it now? And it just adds a layer that very few filmmakers can without just being more confusing.
And I think that's why we all think that it's mid to late 90s instead of bridging in 2000, is the way you described it just reminded me of Usual Suspects. In that same sort of vein of the unreliable narrator. How reliable is this narrator? How much of what I saw was true, and how much of it was not?
All right, so final thoughts. We can't rank the movies yet because
this is better than following.
There you go.
Yes, it is.
I think that's a solid non-hot take opinion. Brandon, what are you going to rate this film? I have a sneaking suspicion, but I want to know.
So even the little nitpicks that I have where I sit there and look at it, like upon watching the movie again, watching it for basically the first time, because I didn't remember all the twists. I knew that my memory of the film, playing with memory, would have been that Guy Pearce was the killer of his own wife or whatever. That was like what I was expecting the twist to be as I was rewatching this movie. I love this movie. I think this movie's fantastic. And I don't think that's based on an interaction I had with somebody online, I don't think that's a popular opinion to say that this is a fantastic film. I think people who are Nolan fans and stuff are like, oh, this is a lesser work because it's early or whatever. I don't know. That's the impression that I get. But I think this is a 5-star film. I think this movie's fantastic, and I would watch this. I actually really want to watch this again, and I just don't know when I'm going to get around to watching it again. I'll listen to the commentary when I'm working this week at work, but I don't know when I'm going to get a chance to watch the movie again. But I love it. I think it's well done. I think it's well put together, and everybody should see it.
I don't know if it's viewed as a lesser work. It's definitely one of his less popular ones because it's not like a big blockbuster. But I don't think I've met anybody who was just like, oh, I won't watch Memento again. Like I don't think I've seen anybody snub their nose at it. Have you, John?
No, not necessarily. But I think I get what Brandon is saying is that people are. I think there's a recency effect with a lot of things where Nolan's more recent stuff is more accessible and more. He gets a little bit better at, keeping the audience in it as it goes along. I think I do think that this is one of those ones where there is a little polish still necessary. I would have liked to see the Carrie-Anne Moss role, Natalie's role, a little more fleshed out. I would have liked to see a little more time with, like, there's almost a part of me that would have liked to see subtraction from the black and white part to give more time to the part that's in color. And so I give that this is an eminently rewatchable film. It's extremely engaging. The performances are great, but it's very obviously a terrific effort from a director who's still starting, who's still getting his feet under him, sort of thing. So it gets a 4.5 out of 5, which is not a bad rating whatsoever. But there are a couple of points where on this rewatch, I was like, maybe trim that. The Dodd thing is a little unnecessary to everything that's going on. It's a little bit of a distraction. And we could have done without it, probably. As much as I like Callum Keith Rennie as an actor. So, 4.5 for me. What about you, Tristan?
I think I'm going to give it the same. I keep teetering on 4.5 and 5. I know, like, whew, like an epic
Yeah.
divide. But I think for the same reasons that you say, is that like Dodd feels like a distraction. Even though it's a fun distraction, it definitely shows what kind of wacky antics, like people with this condition can get into. Like, because like like those moments where I think Dodd is worth it just for that moment when he's running and he says, he's like, okay, all right, I guess I'm chasing this guy. And he's like, nope. He's chasing me. And the way that Guy Pearce deadpans it, even though he's getting shot at, it just makes me laugh. Because he's not like, oh, he's chasing me. He's like, nope, he's chasing me. Like, I love that moment, but it's hard to argue with that. It is a distraction that I think it can be trimmed a little bit. And so I'm going to go with 4.5. But one thing is, in 2017, and I'm reading this online, Memento was considered, quote, culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant by the U.S. Library of Congress and was selected for preservation in the National Film Registry in 2017. It is Christopher Nolan's first movie to be preserved in the film registry. It was also the first non-documentary film from the 2000s to be preserved.
That's high praise, man.
Man, that's huge.
Like, I haven't had a single thing selected for the National Film Registry. I feel a little cheated, but that's fine. That's fine. I'll give it to Chris on this one.
Why isn't it this one that's in the Criterion Collection instead of Following? And like this could
That's
be
a
like
great question.
The bonus feature on the Memento Criterion release is, and see also Christopher Nolan's first film, Following, right? So
yeah, I don't understand that one. I don't get Criterion
Money?
sometimes.
Criterion, would they have to pay more for Memento or something? I don't know. But no, I think you're absolutely right. Why the hell is this not in Criterion? Like, if this is important enough for it to be selected for the National Film Registry, like preserved as a culturally important work, why the hell would you do that with like?
And Criterion's like, nah.
Well, Criterion is the hipster choice, so
That's true.
Following and Goonies will get Criterion releases.
Oh, I hope so. I hope
Armageddon has a Criterion release, just so everybody
That's
knows.
such nonsense. That is just friggin' nonsense. That is just stupid.
Yeah, that's a
that is
bonkers one.
idiotic.
And The Rock has a Criterion release.
I think I could argue The Rock. I think I could.
The Rock, I could argue myself into, but Armageddon, really?
And does like Wes Anderson have a deal with him? Like, do they go have lunch together on a regular basis? I'm not quite sure.
The three of us need to do a documentary exploring how the Criterion Collection works, and we're going to expose that one of Wes Anderson's regular producers works with the Criterion Collection.
Right.
That's what we're going to discover.
Like, what nephew works for whom,
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to House of Nolan. We really enjoyed talking about it, and we hope you enjoyed listening. Please go to thenerdparty.com/contact, select the House of series, and fill out the form. Send us an email. Let us know what you thought of the episode, what you thought of Memento, what you think of our show in general. And if you like the show, please go to Apple Podcasts and give us a review. We really, really would appreciate it. It takes less than 60 seconds to do it. You can do it right on your phone, and it really helps us out. And while you're at the Nerd Party, what you can do is check out all of our backlogged episodes where we talk about Fincher. And also, you can check out other shows. We've got Star Trek shows, Star Wars shows. We've got Babylon 5, Harry Potter, Doctor Who, movies, TV. We got something for everybody. You need to check it out. And we have new content coming at you every single day of the week. So make sure to follow us on social, on Instagram, Facebook. Just search The Nerd Party. And on Twitter, search at Join Nerd Party. Now, John, where can we find you on the interwebs?
Well, gosh, you can look for me. I am known as Kessel Junkie online, KESSELJUNKIE. Spend too much time on Twitter. Also writing at my blog, kesseljunkie.com. Keeping that going for the foreseeable future. And right here on the network, you can hear me on Aggressive Negotiations, a Star Wars podcast where we do something a little bit out of the ordinary with Star Wars. We're not just your typical breaking news show, so you should check that out with me and Matt Rushing. And occasionally I will appear over on the United Federation of Podcasts on their show Franchise Fatigue when they want to talk about some crazy franchises over there, which makes me think, Brandon, where can people find you?
Oh, you can find me over on the Fandom Podcast Network with my Hitchcock show, Good Evening, an Alfred Hitchcock podcast. And then I have 2 shows on my own network, the United Federation of Podcasts. One's called Infinite Diversity, which is all about new Star Trek. And the other is called Franchise Fatigue, where we talk about movies, remakes, and sequels. And that's a whole heck of a lot of fun. And John, we had a great time talking Planet of the Apes with John. And we had a great time talking some Jaws 3 and 4 with John. So be sure to check those out. So there's definitely some good stuff there. Tristan, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me online at The Insane Robin under Letterboxd as well as Twitter. You can find me on this network with 2 archive shows that I'm very proud of. Nerd Nuptial, which is a show that I host with my wife, as well as Punch It, Writing in Star Trek, and my show that's currently going on, actually by the time that this is released, just finished, Second Contact, a Lower Decks commentary podcast. And we really do appreciate you guys. Like everybody who's listening, we know that you have so many choices, so many podcast choices. I mean, it's almost limitless, and you guys chose to listen to us. That really means something to us. And please tune in next week where we're going to be talking about Insomnia. And thank you so much for walking through the door and entering the House of Nolan.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.